So welcome everyone. I'm so excited to present this virtually. I had the pleasure of presenting this at the Independent Living Conference just in June. So for those of you who didn't get a chance to see it, here it is. So welcome. I already see a lot of familiar names, and I'm happy to see you there. And I'm also excited to know that this will be recorded so other people can enjoy it and learn from it. The first thing I want to say is that I don't consider myself a social media guru. I'd say that I've learned a lot in the few years that I've been doing public relations work and social media. But just like everyone else, we're adapting to the times, and as technology evolves and changes, we also have to evolve and change with it. So this is, I'd say, what we know for now. And then, as always, things change and things are always evolving. So we named this presentation, "The Revolution Will Be Tweeted," because we've noticed, it's a play on the saying, "The revolution will not be televised." Today, the civil rights movements are created online. You could probably think of hashtags in your mind that have led to a revolution, like hashtag Black Lives Matter, hashtag Occupy Wall Street, even hashtag Keep Families Together, have been some online movements that have started in the real world. So let me get to my next slide. We have a graphic of a bunch of Twitter birds, and they're tweeting about disability. And it's represented with symbols of different disabilities, like a wheelchair, a person with a white cane, the hands doing ASL, and then a profile of a person's brain icon for intellectual and developmental disabilities. So it's just a fun little graphic that I like to put up with hashtag disabled and proud. If you're live tweeting now, I don't have a specific hashtag for today's webinar, but we always use disabled and proud at CFILC since that is who we are. All right, so without further ado, let's get to the nitty-gritty here. So just an overview of what I'm going to talk about today. I like to, let you know ahead of time the different steps that we'll go through. So the first part is finding your community online. The second is finding the right channel. And when I say channel, I mean which social media platform would be most appropriate for what it is you're trying to do. And then engaging your audience, and that's doing that online. And I'll talk about how doing that online doesn't just mean online, that also means networking in real life or offline directly to someone. And then the last one is developing the campaign, actually having where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. All right. So the first thing is all about finding your community. Who exactly are you hoping to reach? I like to call this starting backwards. Think of who you want to reach first. So this is, what age group are you reaching? Are you going to need a certain accessible format? And what are the other unique characteristics? For our community, accessible formats are a must. I know that I've done social media for other public health campaigns, but for us, the disability community, we want to lead by example. We'd like the world to be accessible. We'd like the web to be accessible. And we should do that by example, by making sure that we have captions for our photos and making sure that what we do is screen reader friendly. And if we post videos, have either an ASL interpreter available in the shot or have a captioner. Or there's better and better captioning softwares now for video productions just on your cell phone. So I can get into that next. So the next step is finding the right channel. And when I say channel, there's so many out there. There's Instagram, Pinterest, Snapchat, Facebook, YouTube. But when you look at it, I know it can get overwhelming. When you look at who's on, the bulk of the people are really on Facebook and YouTube. So if you're concerned about where to begin, if your particular ILC doesn't have a social media channel yet, I'm sure you all started with YouTube because that's where everyone is. According to the last Pew Research, U.S. adults online, it's 68% of adults are on Facebook. So that's definitely something worth mentioning. And for me, using it lately, I've noticed that they have what they call alt text for photos when you're sharing a photo, which means you're allowed to upload a description of the photo on the, I guess you would call it under the photo online. That way for people who use screen readers, for those who are blind or low vision, they're able to get a better description of the photo than what is automatically generated. Because usually it'll just say person smiling, 3 people smiling, and they don't get a full description of what they're seeing. So for us, that's an important thing, is Facebook is popular in the blind and low vision community, I hear, because it is accessible. So that's something I want to definitely drive home today, is if you don't have any other social media, be sure to have at least Facebook. All right, so the next one. These are my social media cliff notes. Again, these numbers and these different statistics are always changing, and they're always getting updated. But as of right now, this is what we've got. So according to Pew data, roughly 2/3 of U.S. adults, 68%, report that they're Facebook users, and roughly 3/4 of those users access Facebook on a daily basis. And it says, with the exception of those 65 or better, a majority of Americans across a wide range of demographic groups now use Facebook. 22% of the world's population uses Facebook, so that's definitely probably not surprising since a lot of people are on there. It's a great way to keep up with people. And then Instagram is now in second place. 32% of US social media users use that. 51% of Instagram users access the platform daily, and 35% say that they look at that platform several times a day. Twitter, before I move on, and this is popular among youth, 18 to 24, but I am seeing almost everyone kind of move from Facebook to Instagram. It's not the most accessible for screen readers, and it doesn't allow you to do alt text. So for me, I don't prioritize that as much, but if you do have a youth program at your ILC, it's very important, since a lot of the youth are there. If you ask a young person who's younger than a millennial even, they'll say, Facebook is where my mom hangs out. And if you know anything about the youth, they don't want to hang out where their mom hangs out. So moving forward to Twitter, following trending topics and like-minded organizations, Twitter continually gets pushed aside from its competitor Instagram, believe it or not, but more businesses are turning to Twitter for faster customer service action. So what does that mean? That means different businesses, including like Southwest Airlines, likes to post deals and things. And in our world, it's where we share breaking news. For example, I heard that the fires here in California have wreaked havoc, and a lot of our ILCs have to go figure out how to deal with that right now. So where we would hear news about that would be through Cal OES via Twitter, and then all of us would start sharing. And I'll get into how we share via using hashtags later. And then the last one I have to mention is YouTube. YouTube reaches more 18 to 34-year-olds and 18 to 49-year-olds than any cable network in the US. So when they say the revolution won't be televised, it's probably going to be on YouTube, actually, since that's where everyone is going. I think in this day and age, it's nice to be able to check out content at your time. But I feel like lately there have been more and more commercials. I don't know if I'm the only one who notices that. So moving forward. So just more cliff notes, in case you were wondering. LinkedIn is something you may not have yet, but it is a great thing to have for anyone. It's a great opportunity to network with your niche groups. For example, when I was new to working in ability tools and I didn't know the first thing or anyone else that did assistive technology, it was a great opportunity for me to find a networking group of people who did assistive technology so that I could jump in and meet others, get articles and news, have a community where they kind of feed off of each other and bounce back ideas, and that was a great opportunity. Yeah, and then Pinterest, according to research, 41% of women are on Pinterest. So if you know you serve a lot of women, or if you have a campaign specifically for a women's issue, Pinterest is a great way to go. And the last one is Snapchat. Snapchat is another one that you might want to consider having if you have a youth group and if you're doing a campaign specifically for youth, since 78% of youth are on. The unique feature about Snapchat is that their posts or their photos that they share are only alive for 24 hours. However, other outlets such as Facebook and Instagram have started adding features in that way where there's a post that only lives for 24 hours. So I don't know if Snapchat will be irrelevant soon, but so far it shows that young people are still on there. So if that's a focus of yours, that's something to consider. All right, step 3 is engaging your audience. I always say, do you. Stay true to your brand and your mission. The first thing about that is to be relevant. You know, share photos, updates, and success stories for what your organization considers a success story. Just because something's trendy may not be appropriate for you. You know, there may be a Drake challenge to lip sync and dance to a Drake song, but if you don't have a youth group, it may not be, appropriate for your audience. And then 2 is to be consistent, to develop a content calendar so that you could be strategic about timing and content. For example, last week was our ADA 28th anniversary, and so we shared a lot of quotes from disability rights leaders, presidents in the past who have said impactful things about ADA, and that was true for our brand, since that is who we are. We are all about accessibility and ADA celebration, and also, as you guys know, pushing forward to make sure that those ADA rights continue on. And the other one is follow, tag, and share. Be sure that you're following community partners, influencers, and other relevant news sources. That way you can get up-to-date news on things that directly affect your organization and our communities in general. So if you saw the emoji, we call that the EDmoji because we turned Ed Roberts into an emoji there, and he's got a word cloud that has a person with a disability equals bicep, which in emoji speak we'd say that means disability is a strength, and that was one of Ed Roberts' quotes. And if you like that and you haven't gotten your shirt yet, this is my shameless plug. If you want a shirt, be sure to go to yodisabledandproud.org. If you click the store, you can get this shirt yourself. We do have limited quantities, but if your shirt size is not available, please email me. That way we can make sure we can stock the store with more shirts. Okay, just a brief commercial break. Sorry about that. So if you tell me, Kyla, people aren't commenting on my posts. This is a little momentary therapy session here that says, let's try focusing on the posts that do receive comments. Just a fun little New Yorker cartoon I thought you guys would enjoy. And so how do we get comments? Here are my best practices for engagement. So number 1 is be visual. Include photos and graphics. If you'll notice, my example is Noor Pervez, who works at ASAN, which is short for the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network, an organization we have a relationship with at CFILC. What I love about this photo is obviously it's bright, it's kind of, jumps at you because of the bright colors, but she's a real person. A lot of times we want to use stock images because it looks more polished, people look like models, but they don't necessarily look like our community. We want to make sure that the graphics you use are real people, because that tends to get more eyeballs. I think you probably have experienced this yourself. When you're on social media and you see a graphic that looks really polished, it tends to make you think it's an ad and you just scroll through. But if it looks like a person you might know, it might give you pause and give you a moment to look look deeper at the photo. So that's my little piece on that. 2 is be accessible. Always include image descriptions for visuals. Sometimes, for example, Noor actually provided us with the description she wanted to use. She wanted to be specific about how she was described. And so that helps us out. Like some people want to disclose their ethnicity, or if you want to say a person of color in the photo, a woman of color, it's kind of nice to know how they want to be described in the photo. And then just know regarding accessibility, 80% of engagement on social media happens over your smartphone. Probably not surprising. I know a lot of people do that. Oops, excuse me. And then the third thing is to be responsive. Make sure that you're responding to people that comment, say thank you when they compliment your page or your post. And then lastly, don't feed the trolls. What does that mean? A lot of times we'll get negative comments or naysayers, or just what we call trolls on social media is people who just want to be negative and cause mischief sometimes. When you've got anonymity online, sometimes it emboldens people to be rude. And my method is just to kind of either ignore or kill them with kindness, respond in the most general way. It says, I'm sorry you feel that way. However, we feel like we serve our community, however would be appropriate for you. But I subscribe to the don't feed the trolls. If you try to argue with someone who's saying something negative about you on social media, it doesn't usually end well, and it doesn't typically make you look good to kind of fight with someone who's just what we call trolling. So moving forward, it's about who you know. We've got a photo of Alice Wong using a robot to meet President Barack Obama. She's actually the first person to meet a president via robot, which is kind of cool. And I also wanted to give Alice Wong a shout out because she is a social media guru, if you want to call someone a social media guru. She's someone who, if you're not already following on Twitter, please do, because she does share a lot of impactful things and news about the disability rights movement. So regarding that, networking, like I said, be sure you're following our partners, peers, funders, like-minded organizations. If you're not sure who to follow, you can just go to CFILC and look at who we follow, literally, and just follow who we follow. By all means, I know you guys all have lots to do, and social media sometimes isn't even, number 5 on your list of things to do. So I will try to help you guys make it easier by giving you these little tips. And then secondly, on the slide, connect directly. When I do a campaign, sometimes I know people like Alice Wong or Valissa Thompson will be influential in sharing a tweet for me. So because I know them out, offline, I can send them an email or a text message and say, hey, I'm going to share something later today. Would you mind sharing it to your network too? A lot of times, when we're starting out with our social media, we don't have a big network right away. So we have to lean on our partners who have a bigger network. And ours still isn't where I'd like it to be, but we're growing. And I try to tag you guys in all of our posts as much as possible, especially when it's something that's statewide and pertains to you guys. So that way when you see it on your radars or when you're tagged, you can just share it without having to do too much. So I'm hoping to kind of cultivate and curate some of the work for you from here. All right, so measuring success. This is the part where, the rubber meets the road and we got to see how far we've driven. And for this particular post, this was a post we did on Instagram. We did on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. It was our most successful Instagram post ever. So via Facebook, we had 5,483 impressions, which means that's how many eyeballs got to see that. On Twitter, we had 3,848 impressions. And then on Instagram, we had 227 impressions. I put a thumbs up next to that factoid, whereas the other 2 factoids got hearts because The other two were like great performers. Like for Facebook, the ASAN network was huge in resharing this particular post. So it was really the strength of our network that helped that post go forward. So it followed the rules of tagging a very strong partner and then also having a photo that was bright and vibrant. All right. Influencers make a difference. This is the Valissa Thompson that I had mentioned before. This one didn't have very many impressions via Facebook, 270, but via Twitter, she had 4,150. She's someone who I think was the diversity chair for Nickel last year, so she's very visible in the community, the national community of the disability folks. And it had a decent impression via Instagram, but really it's like knowing who are the influencers of what channel makes all the difference. And one note I already know, like after having been here for a year and some change, I'm looking at this beautiful post that I created, and I realize now that her name, Valissa Thompson, is actually in an inaccessible font. So you won't see me create anything like that. As much as I think it's pretty, we won't be sharing anything like that ever again. So just a little extra behind the scenes tidbit here. And one of the most important things I say when doing social media is to have fun. This particular photo I'm sharing is a black and white photo of Ed Roberts with his iron lung, and it was just a funny Valentine that I was creating in the office. So it was me and our youth organizer, Yolanda, were creating Valentines for the office, and I thought, what if we made funny memes using Ed Roberts as kind of like a heartthrob style meme? And it's the caption says, "Roses are red, violets are blue. The fight for disability rights continues with you." And it's got the Yo Disabled and Proud logo in a red heart. And this, as a joke, actually got us great results on social media. So this is one of those things where we're staying in our lane, being true to who we are, honoring the father of the independent living movement. It's Valentine's Day. He's the kind of guy that would probably be flirtatious and say funny stuff like this. And it was kind of an all-around win for us. So it was a great opportunity for the youth of the disability community to learn about Ed Roberts and also just kind of have fun with it. And so we had, you know, over 3,000 impressions on Facebook, over 2,000 impressions on Twitter, and 600 impressions on Instagram. And I think if you want to share these next Valentines, you can find them on Yo's Facebook or Instagram, or you can message me if you'd like them. We actually have a version that you can print in your office and give to your coworkers or your friends. And they're all very disability pride friendly. Okay, so here is the part that a lot of people have been asking me, or they're too embarrassed to ask, but they really want to know, is what exactly is a hashtag? Don't worry, you don't have to ask, so I'm going to answer it anyway. So a hashtag, it's a pound sign attached to a word or a phrase. It tags and categorizes or signifies the theme of your content. So what it does is it kind of gives you like a quick summary in a few words. And it also becomes a hyperlink, which means you can filter and track these particular conversations about the same stuff. So at first it was a Twitter thing. That's why you see there's a little blue bird graphic with hashtags and different social media icons. But Twitter had originated the hashtag, and then later Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn caught on. And then as an example, I have disabled and proud and a hashtag towards the bottom there. And notice there's no punctuation in between, and disabled and proud is capitalized just so that it's visually stands out. But the next slide here, I'll show you more guides on hashtags soon. So when do I use a hashtag? Here's another shameless plug from us. Well, of course, there's no shame in this. This is a Do Network activity that we want you to participate in. So for example, when you're participating in a Twitter chat, this is like a conversation or an opportunity to share your knowledge and resources about a particular topic. For the Do Network, we're going to have a series of Twitter chats about California disability issues and organizing strategies. One of our Twitter chats will actually be a gubernatorial forum, and we've invited the gubernatorial or the candidates for California governor, and hopefully they'll attend. And for this particular Twitter chat, each of the questions we're going to pose to the audience will have hashtag Do Network, as it shows here under the bear. And so if you respond, we ask that you include that hashtag so that we're able to find your answers and share them with the general audience. All right. So here's an example of a campaign when HR 620 was still going to be voted on, or when Congress was about to vote on HR 620 and people were making efforts to show that they were against it, obviously. So this is Emily Ladau, who's a big disability activist. And this particular campaign used Hands Off My ADA. And you'll see there it's all one word. And then another hashtag was Stop HR 620. So a great way to use a hashtag campaign like this is to ask people to take a photo with a sign so that it's everyone's got the same sort of messaging. Because of this, the Americans with Disabilities Act, I, and then she filled in, can get around my community. And so you can see in the photo that she's a wheelchair user. So it's an impactful photo because it shows a real person using the hashtag. And then next, I wanted to share something on the youth side. Kia Brown is someone in New York. She's a journalist, and she started a hashtag called Disabled and Cute. And a lot of times, you know, this is something that went viral, and a lot of youth are using it to, you know, share their pride for how they're looking that day, or, you know, maybe they're with friends. But Kia Brown doesn't always get credit for having started the hashtag, so this is my way of giving her credit. But if you check Disabled and Cute on Instagram or Twitter, you'll see a lot of Kia Brown and a lot of great photos. So hashtag etiquette, the do's and don'ts. So do your research. You may not be the only one using your acronym. So when you're trying to come up with a hashtag, sometimes people try to use an acronym or jargon from within our community. Sometimes it's a good idea, sometimes it's not. It depends on what it is. 2 is be consistent when you're messaging with your peers. Since it is a hyperlink, if you have one letter or one punctuation off, it's not going to link, so be sure to keep it consistent. The don'ts. Don't use punctuation or spaces, because once you use the punctuation, it'll cut the hashtag where it's at and it won't be complete. And the next is don't use 3 or more hashtags. My caveat is unless you're on Instagram. Instagram is a funny beast in that using lots of hashtags really helps your following, since that's kind of the way Instagram moves. I feel like each outlet or each social media platform has a different method in how you get good followers. I feel like for Facebook and such, I still use hashtags, but I don't use them as much as I would with Instagram. And again, this may change as these things are all evolving. So let's get into the brass tacks of how to develop a campaign via social media. So the first step is researching who is the audience. We talked about that earlier. Would this be a younger population? Would this be older millennials? Maybe even Gen Xers who are online? 2, what is your action plan? When and where are you going to be posting this? There's a lot of information online about what age group surfs the internet, when and where, and how. So that's another one to consider. Since you can actually schedule a lot of your social media if you use certain apps and websites, and I can share those later too. Remind me if I don't mention it later. And 3, communication. Executing the plan, actually getting it done. And the last step is evaluation. How did we do? All right, so 1, research. Who do you need to reach? How does this audience get information? And I'm sharing a photo of, I think this is the 2017 DCAT, or Disability Capital Action Day. It's a group of different activists holding signs and sharing their support for disability rights. 2 is develop an action plan. Which social media channels would work best? What's the hashtag? How often will you contact beforehand? So there's a sweet spot when you're contacting people via social media. If you post too often, people will unsubscribe from you, unfortunately. And then if you don't post enough, you won't really get any traction. Some say if you're reaching youth, to post every day at least, and post more than once a day. I know for a lot of us, including myself, that is a hard task to accomplish. I say at least twice a week is good if you want to continue developing relationships with your online community. And again, there's ways to schedule things out to make it easier for yourself. Can you go live? So this is a question I ask if you're having an event like the Disability Capital Action Day, for example. It's a great opportunity to get users right as they're watching you, if you can go live. My caveat is, in our world, it's not accessible if you don't have live captions or an ASL interpreter in the shot. So for us, that's a big consideration. Step 3 is the communication, executing the plan, schedule and follow. So as I mentioned, where you can schedule for Facebook, it's already in the platform. You don't need an additional app or software to schedule any sort of Facebook activities, which makes things really nice. And then for those of you who want to use Twitter or Instagram, I use a program called Hootsuite. That's Hootsuite, like apartment suite, to schedule a lot of my LinkedIn or my Instagram posts. I don't do a lot of scheduling for Twitter because it doesn't allow you to put in alt text descriptions of the photo. When you post on Twitter, there is actually an option to post an image description right on there. So a lot of the times I'll have to post natively to Twitter to make sure that it's accessible. Tag your partners. That's a huge one. So for example, with the Disability Action Coalition or the Disability Capital Action Day, I made sure that all the partners that were major players in our event were tagged. And also like-minded organizations who would like to make sure they support. Like I've tagged DOR in the past, the CFILC, which is California CFILC. They're great partners of ours too. And then don't forget the hashtag. For us, we use DCAD 2018, which is kind of an obvious one. But this year, in honor of Teresa Favuzzi, who passed away, we also used Fearless Favu since we wanted to honor her that year. All right, and step number 4 is important, evaluation. How do you do, and what did you learn for the next campaign? I know a lot of times this part gets forgotten because we get caught up in, just getting the work done and getting the campaign done. But for me, a lot of times the proof is in the numbers. I might think that something went well because the graphics were beautiful, and then it turns out that the graphics where it was just a real person's photo was the most liked or the most reshared and most commented on photo. And that to me was valuable to know that people love to share and support other people. So I always try to make sure that we're always looking at who's the person involved in the post, and that tends to get the most likes for us, at least. All right. So I wanted to make sure that we left a lot of time for questions at this point. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. I'm just realizing that in the chat, Brian asked if this is being recorded. Yes, this will be on YouTube. Anyone else? Oh, I see we have the Q&A here. Anonymous attendee asks, what steps do you need to take when you accidentally made 2 accounts, but you can't delete the account due to incorrect email? That is a good question. So anonymous attendee, this depends on, oh, I see. It says on Instagram. I would check to see if you can combine an account, because I know you can do that on Facebook, and Instagram's owned by Facebook, so I would hope that they would have the same practices, but don't quote me on that since Instagram doesn't do alt text like Facebook does too. Tonique asks, I missed the percentage of Twitter users. Let me check my notes here. Oh, you know why you missed it? Because I didn't say. I think Twitter users, well, I think it's somewhere over 30%. I just know that no one else has more than 30%, like grossly over 30% like Facebook. But all the other secondary outlets tend to have 30% or so of the population. We'll do a different training on how to create an account. I could do that if that's something everyone's interested in. And let's see, and follow ILC sites since how each site may have a unique way they name themselves. Yes. So a lot of times different sites don't name their social media their actual company name. And I can understand that. If there's multiple companies with the same name, you might want to set yourself apart, I suppose. So for example, our Disability Action Coalition, officially California is not in its name, but for us that's, for the social media, we put California in the name just so that we separate ourselves from, another states. So I understand that. Michelle has a question from Drayle. Will this webinar also be on the Abilities Tools site later, like the AT Network, or only on YouTube? As far as I know, right, Stephen, it'll just be on YouTube. And I'll make sure that we share the links in a follow-up email for you all.
Correct. It'll be, it'll just be on YouTube, and then we'll, Kyla will be sending that out once everything's been edited.
Cool. Anything else, anyone? What is your advice in terms of, oh, this is Brian. What is your advice in terms of sharing the load amongst various representatives of an organization? Do you suggest having one person responsible for keeping up with the social media or having various people given access to the post? Good question. And where did you get the data on the reactions to the posts? So first question, I totally recommend having more than one person responsible, but it takes a lot of curation, if that's a word, curating, to make sure that you're doing maybe like weekly hashtags. Some weekly hashtags people do are like Throwback Thursday, Tuesday Thoughts, Wednesday Wisdom, if you want to share a quote or something like that. Sometimes when I had a staff of communication people once upon a time in another life, we'd have meetings where we talk about what's coming up. If there's like a National Hot Dog Day or something silly and yet still has something to do with the disability community, how are we going to tackle that? So what I like to do is have, typically more than one person share the load on social media, but make sure that everyone's on board. So you all agree what kind of content is appropriate for you. So that's that first slide I was talking about. Be you. Make sure your organization is clear about we share things about disability community specifically and not about Rihanna's new hairdo or something. So it's like, it's got to be true to who you guys are. Let's see. And then the other part of the question is, how did you get the data on your reactions to the posts? Good question. So on Instagram and, well, all of the social media, there are ways to get what we call analytics, or the numbers on who was following, who was watching, who was liking. And on Facebook, when you've created an actual page and not like a business page rather than an individual's account, it gives you an option to see what they call insights. So you click on insights and it'll give you all kinds of information, like the demographics of your followers, how many likes and retweets and whatnot you get. And then for Instagram, you have to change your account to a business account in order to get the analytics for that. Twitter now also has analytics. I think you just have to make sure your account's registered and up to date. And I do believe YouTube shares analytics too if you have an account. Next question. What about using the YouTube channel? We haven't really taken advantage of the YouTube channel. What would you suggest for using the YouTube channel? One, obviously, is to make sure it's accessible with updated captions and audio description if you can. That's something that we're also committed to here. I have to do more research, honestly, about YouTube. We're launching a whole new venture in videos for ability tools, and we're excited about it. And I want to make sure that everything we do is accessible and appropriate for our audience too. So I'm excited to learn more about that and share that with you guys too as it happens. Maria is asking, could you send an email to the Do Network so that all ILCs may place a link in their different social medias as means of adding each site to our own social media platforms? I think you're asking about embedding something onto your website, as my guess. But if you, you can share our post about the Twitter chat in all the various ones. So if you see the post on Facebook, you can hit the share button and share as your page and put it on your ILC's page. Instagram's a little trickier. You have to download a separate app for that. I use Regram, and it allows me to copy not only the photo, but also to copy the content of the text as well. If you have the time for that, again. And then Twitter, you can just hit retweet. So if that doesn't make sense, I can speak to you offline about that. But I'll make sure that you guys get all of the links to the Do Network social media posts if you want to share those out in your communities too. Let me see. Ron is asking if blogging is still a method for you or to consider it, or is it dead? Blogging is alive and well, Ron. We still blog for ability tools, and the key for that is making sure that it doesn't just get posted up and then, you know, nobody knows about it. It's kind of like having a garage sale and not putting up signs or not saying you're having a garage sale to anyone. Let's see. And then we have an anonymous attendee that says, this may be a dumb question, which I don't believe in dumb questions. However, you mentioned alt text. Not sure what that means. Could you elaborate? Absolutely. So alt text is a way for screen readers, which is the technology for people who are blind or low vision, are able to access their computer screens and have whatever's on the screen appear described to them auditorily or you know, by description in sound. And so I try to make sure that when I'm using Facebook, for example, there's an option to upload alt text, which is to describe the photo that they see with more detail than they would normally have. So for example, this photo that's on the screen right now with his questions, it might say people like 12 people rather than say hands of individuals raised up as if to ask a question or something like that. Oh, we have another question. I think it's, will you do a different training on how to create an account? Maybe. If you, whoever's interested in that messages me, or actually, here's a great plug for the survey coming up. I implore you all to participate in the evaluation after this training, just to give me feedback. I'd love to know your thoughts on, you know, whether I covered too much of something or if I didn't cover enough. We're happy to have more trainings like this if we know exactly what you guys are looking for. So if you'd like to have a training on creating an account, that might be something I can do if, you know, more than 3 of you are interested. Because if not, that might be something I could do one-on-one if I'm allowed to. I think as the communication person for CFILC, I'm your communication person as well. That's at least how I see it. And then Maria asks, when will you begin the next campaign the community organizers can jump on? Hey, that's all the time. We're always doing some sort of campaign. October is National Disability Employment Awareness Month, so we're always doing something for that. I know for sure that the youth program, or YO, will be doing a mentoring event, and for sure that'll involve social media. So I will keep you all posted. Brian asks you, do you intend to create any kind of collaborative network so that centers can just reach out to one another and communicate in an ongoing manner as to what is working as well, sharing ideas, etc.? I love that idea, Brian. Stephen, is there a way we can poll the audience? Because I would love to have an opportunity where we have like a Facebook group or something of that nature. I don't know if you have enough listservs, but I feel like I'm up to my nostrils in listservs. And we get so many emails from listservs. I love them, don't get me wrong, but I feel like for this, if it's about social media, maybe we should communicate via social media. Just me.
Kyla, you're wanting to do a poll for this question?
Yeah, I just want to know if I created a Facebook group to help people navigate, doing social media, and also to kind of say, it could also be a space for people to say, hey, I'm posting this, can you guys help me and boost it,
Right. I can't add a new poll. I have some existing ones that we had, but I wouldn't be able to.
Oh, I see. No worries.
Well, actually, let's see. Maybe we can. So we're learning here. Let's see. Let me try. Maybe I can do it. What was the question again?
So I was going to ask everyone if they would be willing to join a Facebook group. Just say yes or no. Would you join a Facebook group where we could share, tips on social media within our network? Talmadge is saying yes. I like that. Yolanda says it's a really great way to connect your community. Blogging is just, regarding blogging. Sorry, I should have had that open. I think you guys are responding in the Q&A and not the chat, but that's okay. I am seeing it. As long as I see it, I don't care where it comes from. Cool. Well, thank you, Brian. You started a whole Facebook group that's about to be created now. That to me looks like a significant number of people. So if you guys don't mind, I will send a link to it, and then whoever wants to join can join. And some of you that I know, I can maybe tap to add. Talmadge is asking, connect etiquette with soft skills of internet. Yes. Etiquette for social media is a huge thing because it's something that's always evolving. But yeah, definitely, there's always etiquette. Is there something more specific, Talmadge, that you wanted to know about etiquette on internet, or? Okay. You can also ask me any of these questions online or offline via email. I'm going to make sure my contact info is up on the screen. Well, I'm going to post my email address in the webinar chat platform. Any other questions? You can put it in the chat. Well, it looks like you guys are off early. That's good. I hope that this is something that you found valuable, and I enjoyed the time, and I hope to see you guys online.